second?
Second.
Oh, Rich, you got it? All right. So the public hearing is open to hear from the public.
Point of order, Madam, I hate to be a nudge. You got to actually take the roll on that motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, so I vote yes. Steve?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
And Sharon?
Hi, what are we yesing to? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just opened the hearing.
Okay.
All right.
Who seconded that, Leah?
Rich did.
Thank you.
All
So,
right.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, we just, in your packet, we included a quick little 6-7 slide presentation. And if Ms. Masterson wouldn't mind bringing that up into the screen. We've discussed school of choice in our school committee meetings before, and I want to just begin by recommending to the committee, as I did before, but now officially in the hearing, that we go ahead and take our vote for school of choice this evening. But really, I think we need to do a school of choice study next year, and perhaps we work on that through committee format or something. To look deeper into the numbers, and we'll show you why here. So, Ms. Masterson, if you pull that up. Okay, so this is just some basic data slides. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So as you can see, this is the school choice out of district of students that are leaving our district, and then also the vocational numbers are in here as a reference point for you in terms of to get an understanding of students that are going out for their education out of Nashoba. But school of choice students, we are financially bound to paying the tuition fee to that other district. Whereas the vocational students, we are not bound to that fee. As you know, that is approved by warrant in each town. Next slide. These are just the Bolton numbers. So you can get a sense of charter school, in-state private, out of district, and VOTEC. Lancaster's numbers for your reference for our Lancaster folks in our school committee. Next. The Stow numbers. And then finally, let's go to school choice in. And this is the slide that ultimately we're having a discussion about, is if we're allowing school choice into our district, and you can see the numbers as they lay now, as we have not participated in school choice for many years. So in just 4 more years, can you stay on that slide, Ms. Masterson? In just 4 more years, you will see that under the policy we've been currently operating, and that is to vote out because we're assumed in unless we have the hearing and vote out. We only have 24 students left in the system. Ms. Masterson. And so there's your historical numbers over time to show you the grade levels aging out. And again, here is, oh, those are in, here's our school choice out, students going out. And continue, Ms. Masterson, I believe that's our last slide. So I offer these data sets to you to get an understanding of, can you scroll all the way down to the bottom of school choice out historical? Is it sticking there? Well, as you can see, the numbers for school choice out are significant over in. And if you remember from the budget workshop, it's about a $500,000 expense to the district for our school choice out students, with our revenue for school choice in declining every year. So with that, Madam Chair, entertain any questions.
All right. So if anybody, I think I see Steve's hand. Go ahead, Steve.
Do we have any information on why these students opt out of the Nashoba system?
Oh, there's several reasons why, Mr. Rubenstein. One is oftentimes we do have a large number of educators that live in our school system, and they like to bring and they work in other school systems, and they take their children with them. Sometimes it's athletic opportunities that they want to experience in another school system. And I have to assume that for some families, perhaps there is a fit issue. But I couldn't answer that as a overall general theme of why students choice out. But I do know it is something that exists within every district.
Mike.
I'm almost certain I know the answer to this, but if you go back to the last slide that we were on, there were 2 rows that said FY21. Am I just to assume that the second row is just a typo, that it meant FY22?
Yes, I believe so. Ms. Maroney, that's correct, right?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Forgive the error there, Mr. Horesh.
No, I'm not. I'm not scrutinizing. I just want to clarify. That's all.
Yep.
Steve, is that an old hand or did you have another question? All right, any other questions from the committee? Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm having a little technical problems here. Just following up on what Mr. Horesh had said, and maybe it's just me because these are numbers and ouch, hurts me to try and figure these out. I'm not good with statistics and numbers. So the first slide had total number of school choice students out at 399. And then the last slide had the fiscal year 22 total number as 409. Am I missing something, or should those numbers be the same, or is there a difference? And I'm just confused by the numbers.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well, Joe. That's not congruent. We can adapt that and get the.
No, my response is the same as Mike. I'm not trying to be picky. I just wanted to see if I can understand the numbers. So.
Yeah, my apologies for not catching that. You're right.
No apology necessary. Believe me, numbers hurt my head. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions? And Alita, do we have any members of the public here who would like to speak? I'm waiting for that. Sharon, I do see your hand. Go right ahead.
So I'm just wondering if you can refresh my memory. We have not had school choice in this district for a long time. What was the reason initially why we had chosen to, I think the initial reason actually was because we had too many students and it was making class sizes too large. It may not have been across the board, but in some schools. But can you just refresh my memory? Why did we decide to discontinue? And do you have insight on why we have not chosen to go back to school choice?
Sharon, I've done a little bit of research on this, and I'll admit it's more through interview and conversation around the issue. It essentially is a risk liability. And that is when you bring in a school choice student, you're accepting that student up through graduation or age 22. And so when you accept a student school of choice, you're bound to that expense until they are no longer eligible to receive their education in the district. And so that includes also if you have students who enter into your system that are school of choice and have not received services for various things, but then come in with the idea to receive services from the school district through school of choice means, and what the potential liability of that could be. That was an explanation that was offered to me as one reason, but that doesn't necessarily mean all the reasons. When I went back and found a memo that was a school committee approved memo from 2010. It was around accepting school choice students at that time and not to accept or exceed class sizes of 22 at grades K1 and 2 and 24 grades 3 and higher. That has set the standard for our class sizes in the district moving forward, starting in 2010. So I think there were some issues around class size as well that might have contributed to that decision, but I can't say for certain because I was not in those meetings. So that was just shared with me verbally by some citizens.
Thank you.
All right, so I would like to open it up to the public if that's okay, if there is anybody here. Alita? I'm seeing maybe June.
There are June, Joseph, and an iPhone that entered the meeting.
Okay, so if the person on the iPhone is a member of the public, if you could
June
just,
has raised her hand.
excellent. The iPhone friend will not go first, but if you could change the name on your Zoom window, that is what we would like. But let's throw it over to June first. Hi, June.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I do want to say I do remember when they stopped the school choice. And I remember at that point I did support it because of the class size issue. Although it was explained to me that by adding school choice, sometimes you're able to add an extra section, which then makes your class sizes smaller. But I think it can certainly go in the other direction. As a parent, you know, even having a few extra students can really feel like it puts a strain on the teacher and their ability to spend time with your kids, especially at the younger ages. And also, I want to point out that I do feel that our school counselors are really under a lot of pressure and really juggle their time to try to meet the needs of all the students. And if you're adding more students, then that's just going to make it more difficult for the students to get the care that they need from the guidance counselors. So I'm definitely opposed to the school choice simply because I want to keep the class sizes on the smaller end. And even if you say, you know, I remember them discussing those number limits, say 24 kids per class, but then what's going to happen is kids still get added to the class throughout the year. Kids could leave, but they can also be added. So it's kind of, you know, I think a little bit dangerous to push up against the upper limits.
Great, thanks, June.
Madam Chairman, I don't want to be a nudge and slow this thing down, but just as a point of order, and I was wondering if the last speaker could give her full name and place of residence as part of her testimony this evening. And all parties who testify before the body should give their full name and their town of residence.
Thanks, Joe. Go ahead,
Sure.
June.
I'm June Mitchell from Bolton.
Joe, do you want their address?
No, no, it's not customary to give you a full address, but I think the town is more than enough.
All right, thanks. Thank you, June. Is there another member of the public who would like to speak? Feel free to raise your golden hand. Kirk.
Well, I'm not a member of the public necessarily, Madam Chair. Ms. Mitchell made me think of 2 points that are important for the committee as well. One is school of choice is a random situation, a lottery. The school committee would set how many seats would be available, and you can authorize to where you would just add them wherever you'd want. So you could limit it by grade level, limit it by town. You can put parameters around that. But also at the same time, recognizing that, let's say you said we're going to open up, 5th grade in Lancaster to school of choice. You do not get to choose the applicants. It is a random draw for the number of seats that would be approved.
Thank you for clarifying that. Keely or Joseph, would you like to speak or no? Just here to listen, perhaps.
Hi, it's Keely. Can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, you're a little laggy, but give it a go. Keely, what town are you from?
I'm on the road. So I'm in Stow. I missed the beginning of the meeting. So I was wondering how you probably already talked about this, but how the school choice actually works. Is it based on the parent? I think I just heard that piece that it's random, but it's per school. And so it's not necessarily a parent picking a different town that they want to transition to. Is that right?
That's right. Kirk, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you, Keely, for the question again. When you open school of choice, you can determine the parameters. So you would just open school of choice, and then the superintendent would determine the parameters around with the school committee around where we'd open that. So if the school committee say voted, we're going to open school of choice, but we're only going to open it grades 9 through 12. They would have that option. So you can nuance it based upon where the demand and need is. So school districts do that because, for instance, you might be up against your 24 per class cap, soft cap for the classrooms, and you don't want to exceed that. So you can put limitations in that way. So that's why I recommend to the committee that as you make your decision tonight, either way you make your decision, that we should go into a study group next year so we can understand what future implications are as we time out of school of choice.
Keely, does that help? Or did you have another question?
Yeah, I know this is long term for us because I just have a kindergartner and a little one, but does that include tech schools?
So our tech school is Minuteman, and Minuteman is also heading, we think, toward a lottery. And so
Okay.
students can apply to the tech school that we pay tuition to. And if they get in, then they can go.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. I see Karen's hand. Go ahead, Karen.
I'm just wondering, because we're regional, if we have school choice, are families from within our school district allowed to request their kids go to, like, my kids are in Stow, could I request that they go to Lancaster through school choice? Or is it only out of district, other towns that can apply for school choice?
Karen, I think that is something we would take to the policy committee. Currently, you have to go to school in the town that you reside according to your address. There wouldn't be a financial implication to that, obviously, because they're staying within the district. So that would be more tied to what our residency policy for the school.
I actually have a question, Kirk. Can the family who it has been accepted into school choice, if we were to keep it open, can they opt into a particular school? Like if you're from Leominster, can you choose Lancaster?
No, that is the discretion of the superintendent.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So if we accepted a third grade student from Leominster, the superintendent would say, you have a third grade seat at X school.
And the transportation must be provided in almost all cases by the family.
Yes. Yes, out of district has to provide their own transportation.
So guys, we're obviously going to have more time at the vote later in the meeting if you want to deliberate more. But Kirk will actually not be present at that part of the meeting. So if you have any other questions for him, or if the public wants to weigh in at all anymore, please feel free.
I'm going to do my best to hang on, Madam Chair, so we'll see how the presentations go tonight.
Okay. I see Amy's hand. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, forgive me if this was already answered because I arrived a few minutes late, but if this was something that we, as I understand it, we have to opt out of school choice, right? So if we don't opt out, then we get to set the parameters for how we want to provide school choice. So in that scenario, if we, is the only vote that we're taking to opt out or not to opt out? And then the rest is going to be determined in the future before next academic year? Is that kind of what we're?
No, the vote tonight is to opt out of school choice.
Mm-hmm.
And my recommendation is that we take it under study next year prior to the beginning of our next budget season so that we're fully informed prior to the start of the budget workshop.
Okay, because I guess what I've seen other districts do, and it seems to make sense, and I'm trying to figure out how it would work for our district, is if we were to do it on a grade level basis. When would those decisions be, how would those decisions be made? If that was kind of, is that what the study group is going to be figuring out if we decide to opt
No,
into?
we're looking at the budgetary implications of school choice. What I would say to you, Ms. Cohen, is looking at enrollment and class size analysis, I would target areas that I would recommend we would add school choice if that were the pleasure of the committee.
I see. Thank you.
Give another 30 seconds of wait time. I am going to move to close the school choice public hearing at 6:22 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I think I heard Rich first. I'm going to give it to you, Rich. I'm going to take the roll on that. I'm going to vote yes. Rich,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sean.
I came in late, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay, Amy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
and I think I got everybody. All right, Rich, you might want to mute. Mute, please.
Joe, did I need to give my blood type before I vote?
You guys are killing me.
All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is executive session. So all of our members of the public, I think, have exited. Thank you, Alita. So
Madam Chair, I believe you need to open the school committee meeting first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Kirk. So I'm going to formally open the school committee meeting tonight at 6:23 p.m. Welcome everybody to the school committee meeting. Next, we will go into executive session, and I have a motion for us. So I move to go into executive session at 6:23 p.m. pursuant to Purpose 3 to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, specifically the matter of Maria Del Rosario versus Nashoba Regional School District, docket number 1885CV01899, based on my belief that having the discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the school committee. Executive session will include the school committee, Superintendent Downing, Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Joan DeAngelis, and District Legal Counsel Attorney Kevin Freitag. School committee will return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
I will call the roll. I vote yes. Rich,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
All right, we are in executive session. Nikki, I'll shoot you a text the Pledge of Allegiance, which we did not start with. So if you wouldn't mind muting yourselves and following along, you can feel free to rise if you'd like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. All right, so the next matter on our agenda is citizens' comments. At this time, I have nobody who has reached out to participate in that part of the agenda, so we're going to move on. The next item here is the school committee chair update, and we have a ceremonial activity that we'd like to engage in now, and that is the recognition of a school committee member who is giving her final performance tonight, Dr. Mary McCarthy. This is her last meeting. And Mary, we have just a few things that we want to share with you and with the public. I hope you will indulge us. So I'm really excited to say that although they could not be with us tonight, our state legislators have given us 2 citations for to be read to Mary because she's so amazing. I am going to start with the upper house and I'm going to read them to you. And Mary, these will be delivered to you as soon as possible, but they're pretty special. And so we want to make sure everybody hears from our state Senate. So it says, let it be known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Dr. Mary McCarthy in recognition of your remarkable dedication to our communities and the years of service as a member of the Nashoba Regional School Committee. And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested, and a copy thereof transmitted to the Clerk of the Senate, which is very cool. And it was signed by our state senator, or your state senator, John Cronin. It's kind of cool, right? Yay, Mary.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you.
And then there is also one that has been delivered to us by Representative Kate Hogan, and I'd like to read this one as well. So, be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Dr. Mary McCarthy in recognition of your service to the town of Bolton during your term as an elected member of the school committee of the Nashoba Regional School District. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all your endeavors. Both of these are dated May 4, or one is dated May 4th and the other is dated, I think, May 2nd. This one is signed by Kate Hogan and also the Speaker of the House, Ronald Mariano, which is also very cool.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah, and so a couple of us have a couple of words to share, personal words to share, Mary. So I hope that you will indulge us further. And I'm going to start, if that's okay. So Mary and I have known each other for a long time. I was lucky to work or to come to work in the Hudson Public Schools at a time where she was a central office administrator. And we all kind of looked up to Mary because she was just this sage who had so much experience and so much wisdom. So, but knowing you on school committee, Mary, has been a completely different experience, and dare I say an even better one, because we've gotten to really know each other because we've gotten to actually work together. So this is what I think. Over the last 3 years, it's been my complete privilege to work alongside Dr. Mary McCarthy on the Nashoba Regional School Committee. Her service to our community is commendable. Mary's approach is kind, empathetic, and reflective, 3 qualities that I truly admire in her. But added to this is her professionalism, her skill, and experience, which has benefited this committee so much and regularly inspires me to be better. Mary, your role on this committee cannot be overstated. You've invested endless hours in the pursuit of equal representation for all Bolton residents. You spearheaded the revision of our regional agreement, which is the foundation of this institution. You helped to usher our district through a pandemic and other significant difficulties. you led the effort to interview and hire our current superintendent, who is doing such great things for our schools and our children. This sampling of your accomplishments will be added to the long list of things that you've done throughout your career as a teacher, a mentor, a principal, a director, and now twice school committee member. So I've told you this already. I'm really sad that this committee is going to lose your leadership and expertise today, but I'm thrilled to see you and Peter sail off into many thousands of new sunsets. So I wish you peace and love in your next adventure. You definitely deserve it.
Thank you, Leah. That was lovely.
And I know that in addition, we have a few other people who would like to say something, and I know that Mike is going to be last. So maybe I'll go over to Rich because I just saw your hand.
Yeah, I'm not going to be quite as eloquent as Leah because I think she said most of it. But Mary, I totally echo that. You'll definitely be missed. I know personally you've been very helpful to me. I'm kind of not sure exactly what we're going to do without you, to be honest with you. But I know you'll probably be available to chat. So thanks for always being so generous with your time and your sage advice. And I'm sure we'll get coffee soon. But it's a loss. So, but we're happy for you. I'm happy for you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rich.
All right. So I know Mike has something that he would like to say. Does anybody want to jump in before Mike? Just give you one more minute. Is that you, Amy, raising a finger there? Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. I will also just want to wish Mary the very, very best in the next chapter of your life in retirement, and also express a gratitude on behalf of the whole committee that there's a little surprise waiting for you in your mailbox, which I tried to hand deliver to you earlier, but missed you. So make sure you go out to your mailbox tonight before the mailman comes tomorrow. Otherwise, it'll be a whole other discussion we'll be having. And you have also served as a mentor to me personally. I met you on the Florence Sawyer School Council when I was just starting to get involved in all of this. And you're the reason I'm on the school committee because you nominated me at the town caucus. So you'll be missed. And like Rich said, I'm not sure you'll ever be replaced, but we will miss you.
Thank you, Amy.
The floor is yours.
All right, well, to my fellow committee members, please bear with me. I just wrote a few words down that I'd like to share with Mary on her curtain call. I knew Dr. Mary McCarthy as a neighbor long before I knew her as a school committee member. And when I say neighbor, I don't mean simply that we live in the same town, making us effective neighbors. Yes, we both live and represent the town of Bolton, but also on the same quiet dead-end street, only 2 houses down from one another. As a neighbor, Mary and Peter always take the time to stop and say hello to us, whether it's on one of her many walks or just driving by at the end of the day. And what I know about Mary is that she appreciates little things in life. And I know that simply by being her neighbor. And it's that attention to detail that has made her such a valuable asset to our district as a member on this committee. Mary throws herself into things that take time. She freely offers her time and her wisdom and her background. Not for the small tasks, not for the things that fit into nice little boxes that have a clear beginning and a predictable end, but for the big tasks. Mary volunteers for those tasks that require thought and time and insight and energy, all of which she has in spades. She volunteers for those things despite knowing full well that they will, in all likelihood, be messy and complex and unruly. She doesn't wait to be asked. She simply volunteers to do them because they need to be done. She volunteers for them because she knows that the job is simply too important not to be done. Mary leads with compassion. She's among the strongest advocates for our kids and educators. She has raised, taught, and fought for kids, and she's worked alongside, managed, and has shaped fellow educators, all with that same level of compassion. Mary isn't afraid to allow her conscience and her faith in the rightness of decisions to lead her positions and choices. She is, in fact, fiercely adherent to her principles and isn't afraid to disagree, even though she always does so excuse me, even though she does so with a firm level of respect and civility. Mary and I haven't always agreed, but I've always felt respected by her. Mary finds deep purpose in each of the tasks that she executes. She seeks out her truth even when the truth isn't readily apparent. She works within clear boundaries and checks herself and others when they have crossed those boundaries, even if inadvertently. Her perspective is colored with a richness and fullness of understanding that, even when she isn't entirely familiar with a topic, guides her towards the right position on the matter. I've wondered so many times how she always seems to land on the right side of an issue. And I can only surmise that she does this because she inhabits a level of wisdom that can only be honed through years, decades, in fact, of working towards the singular goal of growth and progress. No doubt, like so many other members on this committee, I value the time that I've spent working alongside her as a school committee member. She served our community so well and with such integrity and dedication. While membership and the work that we do on this committee is largely thankless, if you see her around town, please take the time to thank her. Thank her for being an advocate, a partner, a contributor to, and an ally for this district. And allow me to start by saying my own thanks to Dr. Mary McCarthy of Bolton. Thank you so much for all that you've given.
Wow. I'm going to treasure all these words. You know, what Mike said, and I have to tell you all that it's Mike's fault that I'm on school committee for this second round, because I said that I would help him find someone he had asked, 3 years ago. And I said, well, I'm thinking, but I don't know anyone. He said, well, actually, I was thinking about you. And that began, I was thinking about me too, but it was Mike saying that he was thinking about me that said, here I am retired. I could volunteer lots of places and do lots of things, but I do know a lot about education. And so that's why I wanted to dedicate this time. I did write to all of you, but I want to say out loud with the public listening too, that you are all ready. You're ready. You are poised. You are doing such great work. You have gelled as a school committee. You listen so carefully to each other, and you assume good intentions. And what I said in that email, that we can have all the professional development in the world, but it takes a year or two being on school committee to really understand what is involved in listening to our communities and making really difficult decisions at times. And that's why I said to you, I hope that you will consider, some of you have already run and are beginning a second term. And I hope other people will think about that too, because as I said, the issues are not going to get easier, but you are getting better and better at understanding the role of school committee, understanding policy, budget, and evaluating our superintendent, doing better and better at that. And wouldn't it be a shame for all that wonderful knowledge just to, to go away if you were to go away? I understand that with your busy lives, that it's a family decision oftentimes whether you'll run again. But I'm so grateful for the level of collaboration that this school committee has achieved. And so I congratulate you. I mean, listening to all these wonderful things about myself brought me to tears a number of times, and I'm not going to cry. But I just thank you all so much. And I will miss you. But you know where I live, Mike especially. And so if there's any way that I can help, I will, but I do look forward to being able to do more on our little boat and going off on excursions. But I'll be thinking of you. And again, I congratulate all of you because you are poised. You don't need me anymore. You're ready.
Thanks, Mary. We love you. You're the best. I would be remiss if I didn't also, in honor of Dr. Mary McCarthy, the quintessential educator, wish all of our educators in the Nashoba Public Schools happy Educator Appreciation Week. We just completely appreciate so much all of what you're doing. I know that I'm in the midst right now of writing my emails to all of my children's teachers and just trying to tell them some small sentiment about how appreciative I am. I would really highly recommend that all of our parents who are watching and spread the word, send those emails to all of our educators, to our principals, to our superintendent, let the appreciation flow, because it is a really nice email to receive. And do it in honor of Mary. So thanks, Mary. All right, everyone. I'm going to try not to cry myself and make Kirk talk for a little while. So we're going to turn it over to the superintendent's update. Go ahead, Kirk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if you don't mind, I'm going to seize the opening of my update tonight to offer my appreciations to Dr. McCarthy. We have known each other only 1 year compared to everybody else on this committee, but what a year it's been, Mary. And the one thing I would like to tell everyone out in our community about Mary McCarthy is she is a champion for children. It starts and ends there in terms of her service to the town and the service of the people of Bolton. And every conversation we've had during the course of this year has been steeped in what's best for kids. And so, Dr. McCarthy, I thank you and congratulate you on your next steps. And I also, Madam Chair, would like to echo Teacher Appreciation Week and Educator Appreciation Week, as you phrased it, because I wanted to let everybody know that when we're appreciating our folks, that includes our assistants and support staffs in our schools that are all part of the education of children in the school system. I also want to let the committee and our community know that next week is School Nurse Appreciation Week. So make sure our nurses get those appreciations also. What they have done during the last couple of years is unprecedented, and we love and appreciate all the nurses in our system as well. So thank you for both of those. And so with that, I am going to present to you a brief slideshow on summary findings that Dr. McCarthy, in her role in the evaluation subcommittee, has been educating you all about this year and working with me on in presenting evidence towards goals and standards. I'll remind you that going back to March 24th, the presentation of the entry plan and that document wrote in great detail a lot of the findings and efforts of what we've done this year. And what I just tried to do in the report that you have is a more detailed report with some narrative. And I've taken some of the key bullets from that report and put them into a brief slideshow so that you can examine that evidence in order to look at progress towards goals this year, as well as the key focus standards that the evaluation committee forwarded on to this committee to look at my work this year. So with that, Ms. Masterson, would you mind bringing up the presentation?
Make sure that the committee understands. I meant to do this before I hand it over to you. Does everybody understand the tools that we're using for this evaluation system? I'm going to put into the chat, just in case you need it, the template for the evaluation that each individual member of the committee will write. And in the email that I sent you earlier this week, I reminded you that May 11th is when you need to have anything that you want included to me so that I can create the combined evaluation that I'll bring back to the next business meeting and we can discuss. But I want to just give it 1 second. Does anybody have any questions about the tool and what is expected of them? Looking good. And then the other thing that the personnel subcommittee did want to remind the committee on is that we need you guys to complete that last go around on our survey that I also emailed to you so that we can share out our goals progress at the next business meeting as well. All right. And with that, Kirk,
Great.
Take it away.
All right. So next slide, please. So the overview of the self-evaluation. This is a self-evaluation tool. It's a reflection exercise for myself and a way to present evidence of the work that has been done this year for both the goals and the primary performance standards. Next slide. So goal 1 has been the communication goal, and we have talked on several occasions about the communication efforts that we have been working on this year. And you'll notice that I have assessed this as an in progress goal because we, or actually, this is the met in terms of the steps thus far. We've expanded this communication goal to include a social media strategy as well as a refresh and redesign of our school websites, and those launches won't happen until August. But the links that are here and in the document that I provided to you show the archive of the weekly communications I've utilized this year that I've received positive feedback from our community on in terms of a best practice out of the superintendent's office, various survey data, the feedback from community forums during entry, the ESSER information, the communications survey data. I want to be clear on this one. This was the communications subcommittee of the school committee data collection and presentation. It had citations of superintendent communications in there. So I provided that as a piece of evidence if you wanted to look at some of those pieces as well. And then, of course, the faculty and masking data at the beginning of the year as we were considering some difficult decisions. So I think in terms of the communications goal, I feel good about this goal, and I feel that we've made some really positive strides in setting the tone of the communications. It is something we will continually work on to improve because as we know, our communications come down really from transmitter to individual receiver and back again. And so every time we learn that we can improve on our communications, we're going to do so. Next slide. So the next slide refers to the benchmark assessment system, the Renaissance Learning benchmark assessment system, along with Schoolzilla. Harken you back to some previous school committee meetings where we've talked about the pilot that happened this year at the Lancaster schools and some work we did as an administrative council in making the decision that, yes, this is a tool we definitely want to move over to. So the rollout plan is cited on here. And then there's a link to the STAR 360 assessments to give you another flavor of that. This really, it's a in progress goal because by virtue of the design of how we're doing the evaluation this year and me presenting to you on May 4th, I can't get to completion of the goal until we train the trainers on May 20th, and then we do the administration the first 2 weeks of June. So by the end of that, we'll have those things ready to go, and we will give you a launch presentation on that in the fall as we move into the comprehensive K-9 implementation of STAR 360 for reading and math. Goal number 3 ties directly back to, I'll connect you back to the recommendation was to focus in on the entry plan for goal number 3. And sort of, this is where Dr. McCarthy and I kind of came to some negotiations on how to write this. And because I wanted to walk up all the way, not past entry and into strategic plan, because as you know, the entry plan is a foundation document and sort of a collection of thoughts that feed into the strategic planning process. So really, you can think of the entry plan as 95% of the evidence towards this goal with the report on entry findings and the presentation that was given to you on March 24th. I am happy to let you know that we are on our way with strategic planning. I want to thank Mr. Horesh, Ms. Pock, Ms. Vivirito for all participating in our first session of strategic planning last week, and we'll be reconvening next week for session 2 of 5, ultimately bringing a draft plan to the school committee on June 15th of a 5-year strategic plan for our school system, prioritizing objectives. And so this goal too, I cited as in progress for the same reason. Here we are at May 4th. We have some steps that we still need to take, but we need the entire school year to get there. So we'll revisit that again on June 15th. Next slide. So these are the key professional standards on the superintendent rubric that were highlighted for me to build my evaluation off of this year: curriculum, instruction, environment, human resources, communication, and cultural proficiency. So when we're talking about curriculum, it's ensuring that all instructional staff design effective and rigorous standards-based units of instruction. And I'll hearken you back to the entry plan process, and we talked about how we have some well-aligned curriculum documents across our elementary schools and our middle schools. And while we have these documents in our high school, we have some work to do in coalescing, aligning, and building a vertical strategy with those things. So some of the links of evidence of where some curriculum examination is being done are provided for you here. But I will also let you know, in the first year of an entry plan process, I've been in deep study on the curriculum. It's the steps now that we're going to make forward in terms of where we make tunes on the curriculum and how we get them all aligned and make sure that they are measured against the Massachusetts state frameworks as our curriculum. Some areas of focus, stay with that one for a moment. Some areas of focus would be the alignment of the Massachusetts math standards with the K-5 program that we're bringing in next year, as well as the social studies alignment to the 2018 standards, focusing on that spine of civics throughout the curriculum. Next. So looking at instruction, in showing my work and effort in ensuring that there's best practices in instruction happening in schools, I have to tell you the biggest piece of evidence, the most important piece of evidence, is not hearing about the instruction in our schools. It's going to look at it with your own eyes. And so I have a practice that was interrupted sort of January to March due to our surge when we were looking at our safety protocols in the school a little more, that I visit the schools throughout each week. So I visit Florence Sawyer on Mondays, both of the schools, Stow schools on Tuesdays. I'm at the high school on Wednesdays, and I'm at the Lancaster schools Thursdays, sometimes Fridays. And this is an opportunity where I get walk into classrooms with the evaluators, and we try to go to at least 2 classrooms. And we've started using an administrator walkthrough protocol that I had designed previously and have brought over to Nashoba. And this is where we're getting into deep ideas about curriculum instruction. What we're going to be able to do with Renaissance Learning is look at those core tenets of reading and math and see the impact of our instructional practice. As I said in my entry plan, we have strong teachers in our school system. The instruction is strong. Where we can strengthen as a system is in alignment of our curriculum and instructional practice, both vertically and horizontally. Next. So when the environment standard is ensuring safety and health and having effective plans and procedures throughout our schools. This is where our outstanding principals, frankly, make the superintendent look good. We have outstanding principals that have excellent processes and procedures in the school. I know this from my school visits. So we're able to walk the building, walk the facilities. We're able to assess what is happening in their building, both with teachers, students, and the community. So I think that is the primary aspect of looking at the environmental standards. So I cite that. Dates were difficult to put in here, which is why I cited the days of the week that I'm in those schools. So you just weren't littered with dates throughout the year. But my goal is to visit each of those, each school at least once a week. And so some other things that we've done in the environment to really sort of build a culture of self-accountability and mutual accountability to the things that are both operational and educational in the school system. And that is through the meeting structure that I introduced at the very beginning of the year of weekly cabinet meetings. We have monthly principal meetings, monthly administrative. I meet with our NREA leadership once a month, as well as a cross-section of faculty from across the district to understand what's happening in our schools and to get a firsthand account of any worries that are out there. Of course, our real focus this year has been around the health and safety of our schools regarding COVID-19 and the pandemic. And so the COVID data dashboard is an important piece of evidence of how we're monitoring the health. And I'll harken you back to that data dashboard isn't just sites of cases. You will also see in there weekly attendance. You will see town case data, although I need to update the town data over the last couple of weeks. And then you will also see links to the pages and resources that I use to monitor policy and current conditions in both our state and community. And we also consult with the Nashoba Boards of Health and Dr. Coleman on an as-needed basis when we have situations that deserve that. Next. So looking at human resources, I've in the past couple of months had to work a lot more in the human resources office than before. And in that vein, I want to wish Miss Nrhs well. She is going to be returning to our office very soon. And out of her privacy, I won't make that announcement, but very happy to report that she's doing well on the mend. We're happy to see her in the office. But in the interim, I learned how to be an HR director and conduct a principal search for the center school in Stow. So using some practices I had from the past, along with some practices Ms. Stoika has constructed here in Nashoba, we were able to put together an excellent process that yielded an outstanding principal candidate that is coming to our school system. And another piece in terms of human resources management is looking at the evidence I cited in my entry plan around creating the bench strength. I remember Mr. Horesh even asking a question about defining more about what bench strength means. And we started doing that with the crafting of the assistant business and operations director from our budget analyst position. And I'm happy to announce to you tonight, Mr. Renan Asenko from the Brookline Public Schools is going to be joining us, and he will start in that position on Monday, May 9th. So I want to have a shout out to Renan and welcome him to the Nashoba Schools. And I think there's one piece that I neglected to add to the human resources slide now that I'm looking at it that I should mention to you, is that when principals are making teacher hires in the building, the final step of the hiring process is every teacher has to come and have an individual interview with me. And it is in that way that I meet every classroom teacher that enters into our school system so that I can assess, are we bringing the best teachers to Nashoba? Forgive me for not having that bullet. I feel like I've neglected it in not providing. Next slide. This is a restate of some of the communication steps that have been made this year. And so in the entry plan process, there were a lot of opportunities to meet with the community, and I'll be working on this summer what that community meeting structure is going to be looking like for next year. There was a lot of feedback in our strategic planning data that we received from our community that they would like more opportunities to learn about curriculum instruction in our schools through evening forums. So we're going to be taking that to heart through the strategic planning process. And then also the citations of the data that are also connected to the goal. I've had an opportunity to do some other community outreach, like with the Nashoba Rotary, for instance, which is a group that I think is going to be important to us and will help us in terms of we think about advancing a building project forward in the future. Where I really thought some outreaches and communication were effective this year were in those non-sexy but incredibly important areas of finance. The work that we did around recommunicating and crafting the budget and providing great detail in the budget was cited in my entry process as what many of our town leaders and citizens wanted to understand where the money comes from and where the money goes. So the joint session of the FinComs I thought was a critical communication this year, as well as the presentation given at the Budget and Warrant Committee on how the assessment is derived and how enrollment impacts that over time. Those are key communication moments this year that I think ultimately led us through a bold budget process that was successfully passed both in the town of Bolton and Lancaster this past Monday evening. And next slide. Bolton Proficiency. So we've done some work as Dr. McGuire has reported in his teaching and learning around diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of our March PD Day, as well as our district creative equity by design. And really, it came out through our portrait of a Nashoba graduate when the culturally competent global citizen competency came forward as critically important to our future. And then, you know, in my emails throughout the year, I try to, particularly in the late fall, early winter, recognize the holiday seasons of our holiday traditions of our community, as well as in the springtime traditions. And I do that not because I endorse one tradition over another. I just know they're important to our people who do celebrate those traditions. And from my position as a superintendent, they are well wishes. And that's how they're intended. And I hope that's how they're received. Because I think as we're becoming culturally proficient, it's not making everything equal. It's recognizing the value of each thing and each element that cultural diversity brings into our community. What I will tell you about this particular standard, though, we have a lot of work to do. And it's going to be work that is going to be brought forward through the strategic planning process. And we'll advance forward in a strategic way on how we look at diversity, equity, inclusion to give a sense of belonging for all populations in our school system who may feel marginalized or may feel as if they don't fit in, because we don't want any of our students, our employees, or our visitors to our school feel like they don't belong because of the way they look, the way they speak, the language they speak, it may be the disability they carry. We want everyone to have a sense of belonging in our school. So this will continue to be a very, very important piece of work. And as with that, I will take any of your questions.
Thanks, Kirk. That was great. And I'm just looking for some hands. If anybody has any questions. I just wanted to point one thing out really quickly, Kirk. I noticed that the rollout plan document is not shared.
Oh, I'll get that bullet corrected.
Awesome, thank you. Although you described what the rollout will look like, it's, you know, probably a good idea to share it.
Yeah, I'll ask Dr. McGuire to share that with the NRSD community so that you can see it through your school committee email.
Awesome. So I saw Rich's hand first, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, Alita, is it or Leah? Is it necessary for us to have the slides up still, so we can all see each other?
I don't think so. You can probably unshare, Alita. Thanks.
I want to process this more, but I just want to clarify one thing. Did you say that you meet with every teacher before they're hired? Did you say that?
That is correct, Mr. Eckel.
Wow, that is amazing. So that's a feather in your cap, and I think that's a great way to keep your ear on the ground, and you know, I think it sends a great message to the people that you're hiring too. So,
thank you.
Great. Go ahead, Mike.
No questions. Just thank you very much for putting this together. This is obviously a really functional and useful tool, and I really appreciate hyperlinking everything in the presentation. It makes this next week of putting our evaluations together that much easier. So thank you so much.
Any other questions about the presentation or about the process? I know many of you have done this before. If you guys have any questions about what you need to do by May 11th, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm sure Mary would also welcome you reaching out to her anytime, but maybe you can just direct your questions to me and I will help you, and I'll ask Mary if I need more help. All right. So Kirk, I think, Mike, that's not a new hand, is it? Okie doke. So Kirk, I think that does it for the evaluation. Well done. And thank you so much for all of your hard work all year long. We are so appreciative.
And thank you to Dr. McCarthy for leading me through that process as well.
All right. So we're going to move on, my friends, to our next agenda item. And that Means we get to turn it over to Kate. Dr. Boynton, you're going to present your entry plan. And Kirk, if you want to cue it up, feel free, or we can just go right to Kate.
No, I would love to give Dr. Boynton an introduction here. Dr. Boynton and I came to the school system at the exact same time. And I remember meeting her in the back of the school in our offices as we had Hollywood absconded our school for a few days. And I have to tell you, it was an amazing opportunity because it put everybody that worked as 12-month employees into the same room and gave Dr. Boynton such an incredible opportunity to just build some relationships with their staff. And what I want to tell you is those relationships have carried throughout the school year. And so as we have been getting to know the school system together, Dr. Boynton and I have collaborated on our entry plans. And so her entry plan tonight is hers. It is succinctly hers. And she is, distinctly hers. And she has done a lot of work to understand Nashoba Regional High School and all the wonderful things it has to offer. But she also has a sense of what are the next steps and how do we need to grow as a school system. So Dr. Boynton, we'd like to bring you forward to present your entry plan.
Superintendent Downing, thank you very much. Those days in the portables in the summer in July were some forced family fun. They were great. It was a unique experience to enter a school system that way. If I could just take a moment to just congratulate as well, Dr. McCarthy. I watch school committee pretty much every time it airs, and you're just, it's grace and reflection, and you know a ton. I learned a lot just listening and watching. So thank you and congratulations, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week as well to all Nashoba staff and educators out there. Alita, are you able to share the presentation, or is that something I can ask for you to do?
There's nothing Alita can't do, no. But I can do it too, Alita, if you need me to.
Yeah, we'll get it up there.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Thanks,
Alita.
Thank you, Alita. So thank you very much for allowing me to join you this evening to share the findings in the principal's entry plan. Next slide. I have had a lot of folks channeling Star Wars to me today and wishing the fourth be with me. So I needed to say that. So share a little bit about the process. So the process began really before July. I started crafting it, and then as soon as I started on July 1, shared the plan out, and really lasted through the beginning of March of this year, 2022. It included surveys to all stakeholders, staff, family, parents, guardians, and students. It included one-on-one and small group conversations, mostly with staff at all levels. So at the district level, at the school level, various stakeholders within the school and within the district. It also included open forums for families, and those took place at Luther Burbank, at Hale. So I went and pushed into each of the communities, and then the last one was at the high school. Observations and walkthroughs of classrooms and the facilities. So that was something that I really wanted to do with Rob, and then through the building visioning process, walking through the building to see all of the ins and outs of the high school, attending events to get a pulse on the vibe of the student community, as well as just as well as what the community values and what we as Nashoba consider part of our identity, and those events and those traditions are really an important part of that. It included examination of documents, for example, the program of studies, the student handbook, the prior NIASC data and report, as well as other artifacts like Panorama, and I'll be talking a little bit more about Panorama later in the presentation, our student management system, PowerSchool, and the DESE website. Next slide, please. Pulled out some major themes, and the ones on the top are things that I consider are some of our strengths, and then the ones on the bottom are areas for us to really dig into and to work on. So we have great pride in our community with high academic expectations and standards our students really achieve. We have rich athletic and extracurricular traditions that thankfully we were able to bring back post-COVID that many students had missed and staff members had missed as well. We have involved students and I would say really talented staff members. That's in an additional slide. Some areas for us to work on are our trust. And I'll elaborate on this a little bit more in a future slide. Trust, communication, which echoes some of the themes that Superintendent Downing has brought up from a district level. Sense of connection and belonging, and really through and of the members of our community, and really through an SEL and equity lens. Voice for students and voice for staff, as well as the need to develop a shared vision. Next slide, please. You'll see that the themes or the categories really closely align with the superintendent's entry plan findings. And that was very deliberate, kind of looking at those broad categories where we were looking for to learn about the Nashoba community. So in climate, culture, and safety, again, echoing kind of the main findings there, we have really involved students. And I want to share, that our students are involved in a lot of clubs with a social justice and service focused. For example, our Stuco organization, the Green Team, Students for Social Justice, our GSA, our Best Buddies, the Interact Club. We have students involved in really interest-based clubs like DECA, music and drama, as well as robotics, our finance club, which is new this year, as well as coding and chess, which are also brand new this year. So students are creative and they are proposing, they're seeing an interest amongst themselves and peers, and they're proposing new activities extracurricularly for students to get involved in. That goes to mention the dedicated staff that are willing to advise these many clubs and provide guidance. We also have a new Active Minds club focused on mental health, which is timely to this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. So it's just involve students with the staff to support them. I would be remiss if I didn't mention how the nurses have greatly contributed to culture, climate, and safety during the world of COVID, and how their role has absolutely changed really overnight. They are amazing. Our SRO, Officer Hool, is a active and public presence in the building and has forged great relationships with our students, which enhances the culture, climate, and safety of Nrhs. Our custodial staff and our administrative assistants as well are the glue that holds the building together and enhance our the climate, culture, and safety of the building. We have strong student social emotional supports. Our guidance staff is highly skilled at this. In the moment interventions, we have a strong social worker force at the high school that is really skilled at helping students through those critical moments and can assess when a student is really struggling and provide that additional support. We're working on enhancing our outreach with the community, and right now we're able to provide in-house counseling through Perkins during the school day for students who otherwise might not get counseling needs, their counseling needs met outside of school. And then we also have the Bridge program, which is what's called a BRIGHT model, BRYT, Bridge for Resilient Youth in Transition, that helps support students coming in from long-term absences, whether they be something like a concussion or if a student was hospitalized for social emotional needs. So those supports are incredibly strong. We have strong safety protocols, certainly work to be done. The building itself, which I'll get into a little bit later, doesn't necessarily lend itself to kind of state-of-the-art safety protocols, but we have a building safety committee. We've met several times. We've implemented our drills, and then we've had some practice, especially in the fall, with having to really use those safety protocols when situations have arisen. Contributing to the strong climate, culture, and safety is our strong unified program within the school day, pushing in to several classes with unified experiences, as well as the extracurricular unified program, unified track and basketball. And then I think the move last year and the decision to rebrand through an equity lens really enhanced the climate, culture, and safety. So becoming the Wolves is a much more inclusive, inclusive identity for Nashoba to be, and our students and staff have absolutely embraced this move. Next slide, please. Areas for growth, communication. You'll see that as a theme. And that is one that was a top theme that took place to improve communication and that community outreach, really from the school to the parent community. And I would say students want that as well, and as rightly they should. So to ensure, especially at the high school level, that communication is sent directly to students, that they're included in the newsletters, they're included in terms of if there's a change in schedule, that messaging goes directly to students, and that enhances their muscle memory to read their school email as well, if that's a mode of communication. I think we're working to improve the website in conjunction with district efforts, so that's another mode of communication. And then looking creatively at social media platforms. Our Stuco has a very strong platform, and in my meetings with them, we'll often collaborate on the kind of messaging that'll go out if there's a particular student events that are out there. But communication absolutely rose as an important theme for improvement. There are a couple of sensitive topics, I think, that I want to just absolutely, name and be transparent, that there has been a large rate of leadership turnover at the high school, which I think has presented a challenge in maintaining a consistent climate, culture, and safety. And then there's been some trauma that the community has experienced that has eroded some trust. Eroded some trust from the school to the community, and then within the building itself, it's eroded some trust between administration and staff. And so I wanted to name that and be really transparent that there's some healing that needs to be done still within the community, and then from the school out to the community. I think communication enhances that level of trust, and the more transparency that's there and understanding the whys behind decisions that might get made enhances that trust. And I don't plan to go anywhere anytime soon. So that consistency hopefully will be there. I think another theme that popped was to provide more systematic and authentic opportunities for students and staff to have a voice in that decision-making, to have a voice in airing concerns without perhaps fear of retribution of some sort, or being questioned. And we're working to create those opportunities for voice for those, for those important stakeholders. I've pushed into Student Council, Stuco, a number of times to hear concerns. My door is open for any student as well. We've had opportunities for the superintendent to meet with our Student Council for them to share their concerns, but also for him to ask very kind of pointed questions about kind of what they're feeling and what they believe in, and around the portrait of the graduate work as well. We want to make sure that all students feel connected. We are most definitely part of it COVID related, but we saw the trend even before COVID that we're in a mental health crisis for our youth, and we want to ensure that we have that support network, that students feel connected. There's a trusted adult in the building. When there's a trusted adult, that definitely has a positive impact on how our students are doing. Next slide, please. I'm going to show you a little bit of data. So this is from Panorama, and Panorama is a platform that allows for the collection of survey data. It allows for the planning of interventions. It was just brought on board to Nashoba Regional High School this year. I'm still learning the platform, so we're definitely not using it to its the extent that it could be used. But the potential for it is really tremendous in terms of multi-tiered systems of support, identifying trends in academics, in social emotional, in behavioral, in attendance. All of those are data points. And what it does is actually it connects with PowerSchool and syncs with PowerSchool, and then is able to pull the data and show it in a visual way. This happens to be a survey that we gave to NRH students in homeroom in January. If you look, there were 688 responses. So that's like a huge number of students. A lot of students at that particular day were at a DECA competition. So the states, so that they were not able to take the survey on that day, but 688 out of a total of 880 students or so is a tremendous response. So I'll walk you through the data, and you can kind of visually see what Panorama does in terms of identifying areas of strength in green, relative strength, and areas where we fell kind of below the national average. One other thing to note about Nashoba, or about Panorama, is that we can see our own results, but then how they compare to other schools around the country. And so relative strength is supportive relationships. So we know that's great. So we have 84% of students that are reporting that they have a supportive relationship, whether that be a parent or guardian, a friend, or a staff member. And that puts us really at the top in the 80th to 99th percentile comparative to national data. Self-management is also a strength, and self-management really means self-management is how well students manage their thoughts, emotions, and behavior in different and often difficult situations. So our students reported that they feel that they're able to exhibit a high level of self-management. They're in the 60th to 79th percentile. Social awareness is how well students consider perspectives of others and are empathetic. Our students reported a relatively high level of social awareness, and I think that really speaks to the types of clubs that students belong to, those social justice and service clubs. EMT experience is also in there as well. They have a huge level of that social awareness and empathy. Positive feelings is how frequently students reported that they felt positive feelings. That one was a little kind of in the middle, and something that I think we want to dig into a little bit more. The 57% of students said that they experienced, positive emotions, or 56% of the time. I'm actually going to get into that. Questions that were asked in this that I can kind of share. First question was, during the past week, how often did you feel excited? And 5% of our students said almost always. 35% of our students, which is 237, said frequently, and 36%, which is 248, said sometimes. That's a sample question. The one question was, during the past week, how often did you feel safe? 42% of the students that responded said almost always, and 38% said frequently. Only 1% said almost never. So while it's a response in the middle, it's still fairly positive and puts us in the 40th to 59th percentile. Challenging feelings is how frequently students reported they felt feeling challenging feelings. And so in this one, the higher the score means the less frequent students report having challenging emotions. So this one as well, it puts us in the 60th to 79th percentile, which is a relative strength compared to other students around the country. One of the two areas where we struggled really was in the first one was in grit, and that's where we scored the lowest in the 0 to 19th percentile. I'm going to share some of the questions. How often do you stay focused on the same goal for several months at a time? So grit is really looking at how they're able to persevere through setbacks to absorb kind of long-term goals. And 36% of our students reported that they are able to stay focused. 34% reported they were only sometimes able to stay focused. And then 17% said once in a while. If you fail, so another question that was asked to reach this metric is, if you fail to reach an important goal, how likely are you to try it again? Only 12% of our students said extremely likely. 41% of our students that responded to the survey said quite likely, and 34% said somewhat likely. If you have a problem while working towards an important goal, how well can you keep working? 40% of our students said only somewhat well. So it's definitely something for us to think about and dig into a little bit more to determine how, what are some strategies that we can use to grow and develop grit. Growth mindset, students' perceptions about whether they have the potential to change those factors that are central to their performance in school. And this one was kind of right in the middle. 51% of our students said that they have those, they have the potential to change and to change the factors that are central to their performance in school, things like study skills or executive functioning, organization, planning. If they make a mistake, it's okay that they'll try again. Emotional regulation, also a relative strength. And then the last one, social perspective taking, was the last area that was a relative, we scored fairly low in, and that was in specifically, and I find this really interesting, social perspective taking in particular to how their teachers are thinking and feeling. So this was specifically, can a student relate to what a teacher is thinking and feeling? This one was a relative weakness comparative to how other schools and other students around the nation scored. I'll give you an example of a couple of the questions there. During class, how hard do you try to understand what your teachers are feeling? 10% of our students said they try extremely hard to relate to their teachers and understand how they're feeling. 35% said quite hard. 38% said somewhat hard. So they're putting in a little bit of effort to understand how their teachers are feeling. So again, stuff for us to dig into just a little bit more. We presented this to our staff at the last staff meeting, and it was an incredible kind of conversation starter looking at the data, and it prompted many teachers to go back to classrooms and engage in conversations with students around these very categories. Like, what does grit mean to you? How do we demonstrate grit? What's growth mindset? It was great to get the follow-up, and staff greatly appreciated kind of digging into the data a little bit more, and then being able to have conversations with students. I'll stop here and see if there are any questions about this survey, what we hope to do with it. We hope to survey again, just any questions that people have, because I talked a lot, more than I thought I was going for this slide. Rich.
Thanks for presenting this. This is pretty interesting. I'd love to read more about the methodology here and just, maybe just food for thought. just trying to understand how representative these benchmarks are. I think it's great that there's national benchmarks, but just would love to know, is that represented? Is it matched to be representative of our community, or just, you know, because I'm not so sure students in other parts of the country that, for instance, don't have good public health protocols like we did here, they may feel more anxious if there's more ambiguity or worse leadership or something. So just sort of a general comment. But I'm interested to dig into more about what this Panorama thing is, just for my own interest. But thanks for presenting. It's good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Karen.
Thanks. I'm just curious, at the top there where it says grades 6 through 12. So is this this was only done at the high school?
Only done at the high school. It could be done. So the Panorama platform could be something that is implemented or utilized at a broader grade level. But for right now, it's only at the high school. And again, this is the first year. So this was the very first survey that we gave with the platform. And it was a trial run. We wanted to kind of see how are students feeling socially and emotionally in the midst of the pandemic. Remember, with this was done right in the beginning of January. So as the Omicron variant kind of surged, it was a test run for us to see how we liked the tool as well, since we hadn't really used the tool prior to. And again, not at any other grade levels right now.
Thanks.
And I don't know if there are plans to. The high school is finding it useful. Our STAT team, especially, the student support team, is finding this a useful tool because there's a visual, and I'll show an example of a visual that you can see how beneficial it could be to just visually through color say, okay, this is a student I might need to check in with, versus going into Power School, which can be a little bit clunky. This just gives it a nice visual representation.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just wanted to know, so Panorama, Kate, can actually drill down to individual students, but this is just for the staff's consumption, not for parents?
We haven't talked that through yet to see. Yeah, and so some of the other data in this as well, because it's attached, students sign in through their Nashoba ID, so it can pull information in terms of subgroups for this survey data. So it can pull information, and I'm happy if the committee wanted to have a separate presentation on Panorama. I think my team would like to would be open to doing that. You can look at gender identity, you can look at race, you can look at, and these are the survey results through how did our students on IEPs respond to these questions? Where were they compared to all other students? What about our African-American students? What about any L students? I know it's a small population, but how did they respond? So it can drill down into demographics and how different groups of students responded as well.
Terrific. Amy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess I want to follow up on what Dr. Boynton just said about maybe getting another presentation on this platform, because it seems like there's this very rich tool and there's a lot of data to be analyzed and conclusions to be drawn. And I would love to be able to spend some more time thinking about all that later on. I don't know what the appropriate, I don't know if that's a workshop topic or just something to add to our parking lot, but I would be in favor of that. My question was really, what was the takeaway on the grit response? That's one that stood out to me, that we're in the lowest percentile with the questions regarding grit. That surprised me.
Yeah, the main takeaway, at least right now, and there's still a little processing, and I see the superintendent's hand up, but the little bit of processing to do, perhaps COVID related. That might be a strong contributing factor. I think the social perspective taking that might be COVID related too, because remember, the only class that had a full normal year of school prior to this year, and this was in January, was our seniors. And so the vast majority of our students were in remote learning, and maybe not having, seeing their teachers teach on a screen. And then that's incredibly difficult. And they're just beginning to form those relationships with teachers as they were kind of filling out this survey. So there might be some of that as a contributing factor. I had, and this is completely anecdotal information, I had a couple of staff members come in and just chat with me after they talked about this with their classes. And even though the questions are fairly plain, students didn't really have some students did not have an understanding of what the meaning of grit meant. For example, that was like
I actually was wondering if that was part of the issue, that they just weren't familiar with what that term meant. Okay, thank you.
Superintendent Downing.
Madam Chair, may I?
Absolutely, yeah.
I just wanted to interject that Panorama is a platform that we're looking to, and we're discussing with their sales team for a comprehensive surveying needs around some of the things that I've mentioned, because it's an incredible data analysis tool. What I will say about these questions, the kids don't see words like positive feelings, challenges, feeling, and grit. They see questions. And so these are the categories that are the Panorama categories, that those questions, and the questions are randomized. So you don't do the set of grit questions. They're scattered throughout the survey. So they are very good at surveying. We'll be happy to come back in the fall and do a comprehensive presentation on that. So Dr. Boynton can continue with the presentation tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Karen, I see a hand up. Is that old? Okie doke. All right. So Kate, I'm sorry. I don't want to take your time. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, no worries. No worries. So this was just a snapshot, a piece of data, a data point around how students are feeling socially and emotionally. I think overall we're seeing strengths and definitely some areas for us to work on. And this contributes to, within the broader category of climate, school culture, and safety. Alita, next slide, please. So the next three slides, I did an entry survey, which I shared with the community. Each group had their own survey, but with similar questions. So each stakeholder group. So I selected 4 questions that were really related to the theme of culture and climate. And chose the same 4 questions to share essentially with, so you could look at how the responses shifted from one stakeholder group to the next. Response was not as high as I wanted, but it was the summer and the window closed. I sent several reminders right after the start of the school, and then closed the window at the end of September. So this is the student responses, of which there were 49. Feeling supported and challenged academically. Most of the students said they agree, not strongly. So there's that bump in 4. We didn't have anyone of the respondents who said they strongly disagreed. Feel supported socially and emotionally. At NRHS, you see a little more variability there. And with most students reporting kind of it right in the middle, neither agree nor disagree. So they were fairly neutral about that, and almost a bell curve there, with fewer students reporting that they strongly disagree, that they were supported socially and emotionally. And if you look, the agrees and the strongly agrees really do outweigh the middle group, but not an insignificant number of students said that they don't feel supported socially and emotionally. So that's something for us to dig into. And again, relatively small sample size, but we want to make sure that we're listening, to this feedback and reflecting on our practice. NRHS has opportunities for me to get involved. Most students felt that yes, NRHS has ample opportunities for me to get involved. A few students did not feel that way. And then again, looking in at that, some of the narrative comments in the survey where I was able to do some of that qualitative analysis and look for themes, that's where that voice, the want for more student voice came through loud and clear. And again, students have a voice at NRHS. This was one where students generally felt that no, this was not the case, in that there needed to be an opportunity for students to have more of a voice at NRHS. Alita, next slide. This was the parent response. This was the largest group with I think 79 total responses. Not everybody filled out every question. My child is supported and challenged academically. More in the middle to agree, not necessarily strongly agree or disagree. My child is supported socially and emotionally, really almost a true bell curve there, with most people feeling kind of neutral in the middle, and then almost equal around agree and disagree, and then strongly agree and strongly disagree. Definitely something, again, somewhat consistent with students, something for us to dig into around social and emotional support. NRHS has opportunities for my child to get involved. This one seemed to be a little more on the positive side. So again, reflecting the student responses, that there are opportunities for students to get involved at the high school. And then students have a voice, again, really mirroring that the community is wanting more opportunities for voice for students at the high school in kind of systematic and authentic ways. And next slide. And this is the staff survey. So staff have a voice at NRHS all over the place with the largest category. And again, only 16 staff members responded, but it's voices that should be heard and need to be heard. The largest group feeling somewhat ambivalent, that it's neither yes nor no, with a significant group of the respondents feeling that no, staff don't have a voice, and then a few feeling that they do. Feeling supported socially and emotionally, because it's important for the adults to have that experience as well. That trickles down into the student experience, and staff do feel supported. There's a few that didn't, and a large group that was kind of in the middle, neither feeling supported nor unsupported. Feeling connected to members outside their department. So that was something that I wanted to. Staff felt very connected inside their department, but outside of their department, we still see a number of staff that do have and feel they are connected with other staff members that are outside of their department, with 7 responding that they agree, 6 feeling neutral, 2 that they disagree, and 1 strongly agree. No one said no one responded strongly disagree. I will say that I think that it's where some of the classrooms are situated, that there's definitely some cross-department collaboration, and that might be the experience of some, and certainly not all, that have that. There are definitely folks who are divided geographically, who do not have the opportunity to connect or collaborate frequently, if at all. And then do the staff feel supported in their role at NRHS? Most of the respondents indicated that they do feel supported in their role at NRHS. Alita, next slide. I wanted to show some pictures just around just how involved our students are. So there's extracurriculars. You have our National Honor Society in the middle. You have our the top center is the Red Cross Club. That's another service-oriented club. Drama production. Our sophomores with a food drive. They were the winning club. We did Nashoba Cup, and the sophomores won. We have our wonderful choral program and band. and the International Club, our EMTs on the left, and the top left photo is DECA at the state competition. So just an example that breathes the life into the building and into the student experience are those rich extracurriculars. Alita, next slide. And again, our athletics, you see the top right, our spirit captains with the face paint there, that's a whiteout day. Our cheer, ski, unified basketball, wrestling, swim, our football team, baseball, lacrosse, volleyball, and we've got golf as well as field hockey, and we just do incredibly well on the athletic field. Alita, next slide. Moving into the second category of teaching and learning, our strengths. NRHS has high expectations for staff in terms of their level of performance, as well as for students. Very skilled and educators. I should have done the count for this, but Nashoba has one of the highest levels of teachers with doctoral degrees, I think, that I've seen almost anywhere. It's incredible. I should do that count and share it with the superintendent. They are highly educated, just really smart people and passionate about their subjects. We have a diverse range of course offerings. And as we're in the scheduling process right now, we have a very student-centered approach to scheduling. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We don't simply just roll things right over. We really look at what students are signing up for and build the schedule around that. And our students really achieve at a high level. We've got students, the majority of our students postgraduate are going to 2- and 4-year colleges. We have a number of students who are going into the trade or military, as well as career, and then a few more students even experiencing or exploring gap year opportunities. We also have, and are supportive of dual enrollment students. So our students, if they're interested in dual enrollment, that they are able to get Nashoba credit through that. It's not as large as I think we would like it to be, and I'll talk a little bit about areas for growth. But we are absolutely supportive of dual enrollment. Oh my God. I apologize. My daughter is calling me and it appears on my screen. So I'm going to have to call her back. She knows I'm presenting. She's at Groton Fire Department Explorer Program. So that is letting me know she has a ride home. Very funny. And I want to share our EMT program that came up as I popped it in teaching and learning, even though it's more of it's outside of school, but it's also, it's in school. So the EMT program came through my survey data and my interviews and the focus groups as something that Nashoba is so proud of, that we want to preserve. And a lot of the data was gathered prior to the waiver being granted. And so, we have the waiver that I think we have to, it's a yearly process to make sure the waiver stays. But the superintendent and I are so impressed by our EMT cadets and with the program. We're committed to keeping this gem of a program and experience for our students, and and hoping to see it even grow if possible. So that came through really as a true strength of Nashoba, and something quite unique in Massachusetts, really, which is wonderful. Alita, next slide, please. All right, teaching and learning areas for growth. As Kirk mentioned, at the high school, which is typical of many high schools, we have some more traditional modes of instruction and assessment, sometimes a little more teacher-centered. There are definitely pockets of creativity and innovation, as well as student-centered experiences. We want to make sure that we are growing that and scaling those things up and out. I know that Nashoba has had past professional development. Some of our teachers really deeply in this with project-based learning. We'd like to, kind of pull in that past experience, that past professional development and really enhance it and bring it to be part of what we do during the school day. Our staff are learning and getting professional development in social emotional learning and embedding that into their curriculum, definitely area for growth. And then the universal design for learning professional development definitely has piqued some people's interest to learn more, and how that might be an opportunity to offer voice and choice, as well as look at our curriculum and instruction through both an SEL and an equity lens, to become much more student-centered. There is a need really to become and have more consistent student experiences. Kirk talked about this in his entry findings, as well as this evening. And really that is vertically and horizontally in instruction and curriculum, while balancing, there's this kind of fine balance of fostering creativity and innovation with that consistent student experience. We're looking to create some better supports for our struggling learners, really in Tier 1 interventions that are available to all students. I think our special ed department does an amazing job in those Tier 2 and then into Tier 3 interventions, but really in those Tier 1 that are available for all students. For example, it could be something, classroom-based interventions, or something like a math lab or a writing lab. That's a drop-in center. And I know those interventions like that, I think existed perhaps many years ago, I've heard at Nashoba. They don't currently exist, and I think that's something most definitely worth exploring. And then the incorporation of authentic learning experiences. For example, the ability of our students to engage in a work study or an internship or early college or dual enrollment, weaving in project-based learning such that there might be a capstone, a capstone experience for students. Those, I think, are areas where we want to grow as a community, and we've been having some really rich conversations around those things, and I'm pretty excited for kind of where we're headed. Next slide, please. Just wanted to show you some classroom shots there. We've got Ralph there with a project from that might have been metals class and English class discussions right next to it. Moving over from the right, we have our librarian provides those are worry dolls that students made during the school day during perhaps a study hall, and the librarian Tracy is always providing kind of culturally responsive activities for students to engage in, and that are also meet social emotional needs. We have a science class on the far right. Down below that is a little huddle station in our business room. Below that is a bug project from the entomology class. We've got some additional collaborative projects, music, and then the picture on the far bottom left is our students in the broadcast program, which we'd love to expand. Next slide. Wanted to have you take a look at a little bit of data, and this is from the DESE report card 2021. Advanced coursework completion, and this means that the percent of students at Nashoba completing at least one advanced class, such as AP. We don't offer international baccalaureate, but that would be included. Project Lead the Way, which or dual enrollment. So 87% of our students from the 2021 report took and completed at least one advanced class. The grade 9 course passing, that is the percentage of ninth graders that pass all of their classes, 86.5% of our ninth graders. The Mass Core completion is the percentage of our graduates who complete the Mass Core, which includes 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 years of a lab science, 3 years of history, 2 years of the same world language, 1 year of art, and then 5 additional classes. And that's something that we're very proud of, that 100% of Nashoba graduates meet the Mass Core completion upon graduation. And our graduation rates are really strong. You see they did not have the 2021 rates, but 2018, 2019, and then 2020.
Is the blue the state numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, the blues, the dark blue, I believe, is us. Alita, next slide, please. I wanted to show a little bit more about the advanced course completion. So this is a more detailed breakdown of various student subgroups, as well as the different subject areas. So English, math, science and technology, computer, history, the arts, and other subjects. We don't have any Chapter 74 funded co-op programs at Nashoba. And so if you notice, in grades 11 and 12, there were 484 students, 421 of those completed advanced studies, which is pretty incredible. 6% were in ELA, 84% were in math. So math is definitely a draw. 34, almost 35% in science. Computer, history, and social science is also very strong. Not a lot in art, and that's definitely something, an area that I think in terms of programming, the superintendent and I would really like to take a look at to enhance the arts and create what we're calling kind of pathways, and that's sometime down the future as part of our visioning, our building visioning process, as well as the portrait of the graduate. One thing I wanted to point out that I noticed that is definitely something I wanted to maybe dig into a little, over the next couple of years or so, is if we look at our high needs population, comparative to the percentage of all students completing advanced classes, our high needs population was at 56.5%. And then our students with disabilities was below 50% of students completing even one advanced class. So that's definitely, if you look, it's far, those two are far below the other subcategories. So just something I noticed and something that I want to dig into a little bit more. Alita, next slide. The superintendent shared our MCAS scores over the last couple of years compared to the state. I didn't select state data as well, since that had been shared. But our 10th graders, they take the English language arts, they take math as well as science in June. And we've got the 2019 and 2021 data. MCAS was not given, as you know, administered in 2020 due to the pandemic. We do fairly well. Most of our students are at least partially meeting expectations. We have the strongest cohort in the middle with meeting expectations, and then a good number of students in the exceeding expectations, with very, very few students not meeting expectations, for whom we are able to provide very targeted interventions to get them to meet that benchmark. Alita, next slide. Here's another snapshot from Panorama. And so this is, and you can see individual students, but you can also see globally. And so this is a global kind of picture. This is from semester 1, student academic performance from the Panorama dashboard. And what you see here is the color codes, right? And that's one of the first things. When you look at individual students, you can see Kate Boynton, academics. If you see more red, you need to go in and take a look and see what's going on. Am I missing assignments? Am I taking assessments and not doing well? What's going on? So the color code is really, really helpful. And for students, you'll see that with academics, because the data will pull from PowerSchool, as well as any SEL data relative to perhaps absences, just general absences. It's an incredibly powerful visual tool that I'm still kind of learning and digging into this. But this snapshot from semester 1 really indicates some positive trends. And the dark green Panorama indicates as excelling. That really is students with high B's or A's in their classes. And that is, I got the numbers of students, 586 students are represented in the 66% in that top green that are really doing well in all their subjects. Across the board, this was at the end of semester 1. The light green is considered on track. So you're looking at students with maybe some high C's, B's, they're on track in their classes to do fairly well. That number boiled down to 176 students that were on track in their classes. The yellow visually indicates at risk. And there were 75 students in the at risk. So that could be in the D category. There may be in danger of failing a class or maybe 2. So those are students that we would want to click on the yellow, get the student names, kind of take a look at what's happening. Is this a global concern? This could be something that we then bring to our STAT team, the student support team, once we, look at kind of how the student is doing. If it's one class, what's going on in that class? If it's a more global concern, what can we do for kind of more greater interventions? And then the red, the 5%, that was 44 students, and those students are considered critical and critical in multiple subjects for not doing well academically. And so those are students that would come to the top really of our intervention, the top of our intervention plan. And then you can see it broken down by subject area in English, math, social studies, science, world language, and then with the toggle on the far right, that's all subjects combined, and you can actually click, and there's a drop-down menu where you can have art, you can have business, you can have, so any of the electives, you can pick those individually. So I found, this is a pretty powerful tool. We're definitely not using it to its fullest extent yet, but I wanted to share as a snapshot of how our students kind of generally did first semester, and then just, share the tool as well. I'll stop here for any questions.
Dr. Boynton, or Ms. Vivirito, may I address the?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Dr. Boynton, so in world languages, there's quite a bit of gray there at the bottom. Does that represent a smaller population that are taking languages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a good catch. So the gray area absolutely represents the population of students.
Any other questions? And Kate, I do not want to rush you along, but I know that I'm up against the 9 p.m.
Oh, we are.
deadline.
Okay. I'm going to
carry on. No, you're fine. I could listen to you all night, just so you know.
Next slide, Alita. Okay, this is the last category, I promise. So operations and facilities, our strengths. I think our one-to-one Chromebooks, those are really embedded within the school day at this point and within the learning experience. So that's I think been beneficial. Definitely areas, hotspots that are Wi-Fi connectivity. Some of it's related to people creating their own personal hotspots that uses bandwidth, but the Chromebooks themselves, I think, have been a strength. Our building is well cared for. Our custodians take incredible care of this building. The class sizes we have are very healthy and healthy for learning to take place, which is incredible, and for there to be supports and interventions. Our library, as I mentioned, is a safe place for students, and we're actually creating a care closet for students in need. Any kind of sundries, prom dresses, personal care items to enhance that safety. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention our food service, as well as, again, the facility staff. Food service does an incredible job with our school lunches, being really mindful, being thoughtful of themes, and just during the pandemic as well. The Snack Shack is incredible, providing smoothies, just being really creative offerings, which are amazing, and our facility staff. Alita, next slide, please. areas for growth. Something that the superintendent mentioned is our declining enrollment. We are taking steps to improve and enhance the grades 8 to 9 transition, and we'll continue to do that. I think a challenge is the bell schedule. It is a barrier to some of those authentic student experiences like internships. It's prohibitive now. Students can't really do that with the bell schedule. And then a day one isn't necessarily a day one unless you have to go through the rotation about maybe 12 to 16 times for a day one to actually be A block at the beginning. So there's some unpredictability with the bell schedule that I think is impactful to some students and potentially some staff. The formal leadership structure at the middle level, the department head specifically, is something that I think is definitely an area for growth and to look at. I've not been in a building where the department heads don't at least participate with classroom observations and the supervision and evaluation process. That's something I would like to definitely explore. The building itself, I think, is a challenge at times. The aging building, some leaks and the cold and heat. Those are definitely things that can be a challenge to learning if the physical environment is too cold or too hot or too small or too dark. There's definitely an impact. Improving systems and protocols. And I think in terms of operations and facilities, that has to do some of its communication, some of its safety, but just looking to improve those systems. Staffing has been a challenge, and I think it's difficulty filling positions and finding substitutes has been an issue, and then the large number of study halls. Next slide, please. Connections with the building, with the district work. It's the building project and educational visioning that's been really exciting, the portrait of the graduate, and the superintendent's strategic plan. And this is my final slide, or with the question slide. I've woven this in to kind of the middle of the presentation as well, but topics to explore, our vision and shared values, which came up. Who are we as Nashoba? And I think the portrait of the graduate is a really great start to move that forward. Looking at instructional strategies and approaches that are beneficial for some students and essential for some students, or essential for some, beneficial for all. Curriculum, including those elective pathways, looking at assessment, grading, and feedback, looking at our bell schedule, maybe taking a look at our levels and what those mean in terms of that consistent student experience, the role of the department head, and then maybe looking at professional learning communities that are student-centered, so that we have that feedback loop about what do we want students to know, learn, and be able to do. How do we know that they've learned it? What do we do if they haven't? And how do we extend learning if they have? And then final slide is just thank you so much. I think I took up too much of your time. I had 15 minutes. I went way over. And any additional questions, or maybe I answered those? Thank you.
Kate, that was fantastic. And our time is well spent listening to you boast about all of your good work, because I couldn't be more pleased, frankly. I think that there is so much good work done here. You've not only identified all the strengths, but you've also identified all the areas that are opportunities for you and your staff. And I'm very grateful. I'm willing to open the floor to anybody else who wants to comment or question.
I just wanted to say may I speak?
Of course.
I just want to say thank you to Dr. Boynton. I thought it was great too.
Thank you.
I look forward to reading it. So thanks. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sharon.
So I just want to echo what Leah said and what Rich said, but I wanted to add in a couple other thoughts too, because throughout the entire presentation, all I kept thinking was, thank you for coming in and with this openness to figuring out who we are, to understand who we are and where we've been, and for being willing to name it. We have some incredible strengths, and we've had some big challenges too. But I am so I can't even think of the right word. Encouraged is a word that comes to mind, but it's not really the best word. I think there's a better one, but that you were so able to see all of the strengths and so willing to name the challenges and say, these are the things that we're going to build upon. We're going to use our strengths and we're going to address these challenges. And I am so, I don't even know the right word, pumped or excited or something to see where this school is going to go next. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. Thanks, Sharon.
Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, didn't realize my microphone is off. Yep, thank you for this this comprehensive report. I just would like to make this short. I'm wondering, and of course, a lot of what you did was driven by data collection and summarizing the results of that data collection. If I'm looking at the final slides, the topics to explore further, to what extent are those topics driven by the data that you collected, and to what extent are those topics aspirational? In other words, just sort of like, as you've been in the position, just sort of osmosing these ideas that things need to be changed, or are we just strictly looking at data and then crunching it, interpreting it, and then presenting it? Does that make sense?
It does. It's a little bit of both, I would
Yeah.
say. It's a little bit of both. I think there's definitely an aspirational component to them when I think of my own educational philosophy. And then some of it definitely came through from the entry process, as well as continued conversations with people in the building, and with community members and with kids too. Just asking questions. Some of it came from some of the data actually came from the 3 days of visioning and me taking notes and listening to the students. So it's a little bit of both, aspirational as well as somewhat grounded in some of the findings from learning a lot this year.
Great, thank you, Kate.
All right, I'm not seeing, or am I? Any other questions or comments? Oh, go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I just want to, I want to echo what everybody else has said and not take up too much time. I want to thank Dr. Boynton for going into this level of detail and sharing so much information with us about what the high school has to offer, how our students are learning, and just sharing the data out. It's so important to the families in this district, and it's such a as a high school parent and as a school committee member, I don't recall seeing something like this since we've been at Nashoba, and it's really valuable. So I want to thank you for spending the time to share it with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Mike, I think that's an old hand, right? Okay, Kirk.
So my last thanks. Thank you, Dr. Boynton, for all your thorough work. I appreciate that. I did want to just take a quick moment to notify the committee. As you all know, I'm in Boulder, Colorado this evening because my daughter will be graduating college at 8:30 in the morning tomorrow morning. So I will be adjourning the meeting shortly to attend some of the activities for that. So forgive me for leaving this meeting a little bit early. And if we push, for instance, the SRO agenda item, Madam Chair, as I am having a legal review of that, and I haven't gotten that back yet. So that would be perfectly acceptable for me to push to the next agenda. So anyway, thank you all. I just want to let you know that I will be adjourning shortly.
Thanks, Kirk.
Kirk, I'm sorry.
No worries. It's okay. Congratulations, by the way, Kirk, to you and your daughter and your whole family. That's so exciting.
Thank you. It's special to have your child graduate college, but to graduate from your alma mater is a pretty special day. So
that's awesome. All right. So Kate, thanks again. We really appreciate that. We look forward to all of your good work that is coming up in the future. But wait, there's more. Kate, we are going to stay with you and move over to new business. And you have a civil rights trip presentation and requests that you have to make.
I do. I would love to introduce Greg Denson. I think you've met him before. And Greg has made a request of me, and I'm bringing it to the committee for a civil rights trip, and I'm pretty excited about it. And without further ado, and Greg, I apologize as well, I went long, to turn it over to you so you can introduce, to share with the committee your thoughts and ideas around this trip and what it, what we hope to accomplish. Mr. Denson.
Thank you, Dr. Boynton. That's okay. I didn't expect to be quite on time, and so that's fine, but I will try to keep my my time brief. Oh, I need to share, sorry. So this, everybody's seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is a trip for next April vacation, a 6-day trip, domestic. So thank you to the chair for questioning about a domestic trip last year. You got me rolling on this, and I got really excited. And I think this is an exciting trip. Hopefully you all agree. When we opened up the when the superintendent said we're opening up travel, I reached out to all the companies that we had worked with in the past. I got quotes from 5 companies. Bright Spark by World Strides very quickly rose to the top of the 5 companies that gave us quotes. I went back and forth with the others to try to get the best possible trip at the best price, but they were definitely number 1. I'll go through just some highlights on the itinerary that we'd be looking at. We'd be flying down to Atlanta first, very MLK focused in Atlanta. Might notice the $12 meal money. That'll be every day, so the kids will pay money, and then they'll get money handed back to them every day for lunch. So it's somewhat all-inclusive, you might think, or might say. Day 2, we are doing Tuskegee, which obviously not civil rights era, but you don't get to the civil rights movement without those other things. And so they're right there. We're tying that in. I think Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site is one that I really enjoyed in the past. And we'll stop there on our way to Montgomery, which one of the cornerstones for the civil rights movement right there. Another site I'd highlight there in Montgomery, I've had people ask me about this, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. You might have seen it on TV. It opened a couple of years ago. You might have heard it referred to as the Lynching Museum. So we'll be going there along with a number of other really important civil rights spots. The next day, we're going to head to Selma, and I might be most excited about this. We're going to meet Joanne Bland. If you'd ever heard of her, that's okay. She was just a kid herself when she marched with Dr. King and the others in Selma. I think she was about 12 years old in 1965, but she helped found the National Voting Rights Museum and now meets with groups like ours. And I think that's an awesome opportunity that I'm really excited about for our students. We'll go from there on to Birmingham. Which if you're thinking Birmingham, where do I know that? Might be from your US 2 classes, the Children's March. So that they do a fantastic job in Birmingham. It's now the National Park Service has come in and they're in the process of trying to figure out how to bring all of these different sites together, from 16th Street Baptist Church to Kelly Ingram Park, where we'll see some fantastic public art that memorialize the things that happened, especially in 1963. And the Civil Rights Institute itself is a fantastic museum. And then we'll head north up to Memphis to the National Civil Rights Museum. The Lorraine Motel, that doesn't sound familiar. That is the site where Dr. King was assassinated. But they have created what I think is a really excellent museum that really captures the whole story of the civil rights movement, but is also a really moving spot to visit. And that's our 6 days in very brief. And then we will fly home probably very late that Saturday night. This is a question that came up last time I presented, where are you staying? And we weren't sure. This is the only company that was willing to tell me. So Drury Inn and Suites, if you haven't heard of them, I've stayed some of them before. I've been very happy with where I've been. The company will provide overnight security every night, breakfast every morning. People are interested before we vote. You vote in 2 weeks. You can look them all up and read the reviews. Again, only company of the 5 that gave me quotes, even after asking again, that was willing to give us information about the bus. So 56 passenger bus, so that's going to be what sets our limit. They look fine. I mean, they're coaches. We're looking price-wise at a 1-to-6 chaperone-student ratio. If we can fill the bus, so that would be 48 students with 7 chaperones and they 1 full-time guide from Bright Spark by World Strides, we'd be at $1,825. If we aren't filling the bus, it costs more. One of the things that came up in the past was the insurance. We were obviously burnt. None of the companies that we had looked at in the past had canceled for any reason insurance. They're all adding it now. For the international trips, they are prohibitively expensive. I would ask for the committee to vote when you do vote to approve with the full refund program for everybody. I think it would provide protection for all of the students. It also means that if somebody drops from the trip, we keep that number at the highest number it was at. So if we get to 48 and then if a handful of kids drop out, the price doesn't go back up. And you can cancel up to the day of the trip for any reason. This gives a little bit more information on that, as well as the costs that would be incurred if we don't have that program. Give me a moment on that. We also have their medical program. So we have people by phone. The plan is to bring a nurse. If you looked at my form I filled out, I didn't put most names because I haven't recruited chaperones yet. But when I saw the nurse leader in the building, I mentioned to her, hey, I told you I wouldn't start planning a trip until I talked to you. And when I told her what I was doing, she said I could sign her up. So I told her I would be penciling her in. So hopefully we don't need her in any medical capacity, and hopefully she hasn't changed her mind. But I think this is a good feature to have, along with what you see here, the behavioral health assistance program. It is a pretty heavy trip. You know, this is some hard topics, and so if we had people that needed this level of extra care beyond what we might be able to provide, Bright Spark or World Strides is what their name now. It changed since we started negotiating. We have their access to this. And then lastly, initially, if you have been doing the travel thing for a while, they offer teachers rewards. And I pointed out, I can't accept rewards. So if you want to try to find a way to reconfigure how you want to do that. And so that turned into scholarships. We would, if we get approval in 2 weeks and get enough people, we'll have over $3,000 in scholarships that we can offer students for this trip. And so we would set up a application process to do a needs-based scholarship so that hopefully everybody that wants to travel can. And then I will stop sharing and ask if you have any questions.
Does anybody want to ask a question? Or Greg and Kate, are you looking for the school committee's approval on this at our next meeting?
That's what I saw on the planning calendar. If you want to vote and say yes now, it makes it certainly easier for me to get the promotional materials from World Strides and get posters on the wall and schedule a meeting. But I anticipated waiting.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's probably best.
Yep. You got me all excited.
I know. I am just so grateful to you for going after this again. This is something you do not need to do, and you are just trying to build these experiences for our kids. So I am so grateful.
Oh, thank you. I think it is a valuable thing. I really do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Go ahead, Mike.
Greg, this looks like a seriously killer trip. I mean, really, really dense, really relevant. I think this is an awesome trip. I kind of wish I'm going on this trip, but I guess I have a question to the committee. when we do end up voting on this, am I correct in saying that we need firmer numbers before we can approve this in terms of numbers of kids, which drives the number of chaperones, who the chaperones will be, Corey, fingerprinting, cost, etc.?
Pat, do you know if that is procedurally necessary? Oh, Alita knows maybe. Alita wants to
Might be
jump
able
in.
to give you some historical of how this was done before, because it's a year out. Usually you can make a motion to give preliminary approval, and that can give Greg the option to start fundraising and stuff like that. And then you can vote on the final thing, the final numbers, like right before the trip.
I can't give any numbers until I let kids sign up.
Right.
It's not like a DC trip where everybody in grade 8 is planning, or almost everybody will go, or everybody's going to go to Maine for nature's classroom. If you remember, I think we ran into this before where we weren't allowed to come present until we had the numbers. And so we had to enroll kids. And then there was a question about, we were told to take steps that then the school committee didn't want us to take, because that was the order we were told to go in. I don't know how many kids will sign up for the trip. If it's less than 20, I think we don't go. Honestly, if it's less than 30, I think we might not want to go. And that's what the conversation I had with World Strides was, what's the minimum number? Because there's a big price difference between 20 and 30 kids. And we can set that number. We can say, if we don't have a minimum of 30 students, we don't go. Or you can set it at 48 if you wanted. But that would give us a time limit with the 30 days to get to that number.
Okay, Steve.
Yes, I would like to make a motion. I would like to move that we give conditional approval for this trip so that Greg can begin his planning and start looking for students who would be interested in going, with a final request for official permission from this group no later than February 1st of next year.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, Joe, thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion? Rich.
Mr. Benson, would this be helpful to you, this proposal by my colleague?
I think if you voted no in February, everybody's going to lose $150. The only way, which is fine. I mean, if that's what the committee wanted to do, the only way that I can have firm numbers is if people sign up, and when they sign up, they have to pay a deposit. And so they're immediately putting money in. And there is the 30-day window that they could cancel and get everything back. But 30 days from when we would know, we're going to be in the middle of summer. Which
I just put that February 1st date in there because I thought it would be, that's, you could put in the official form and everything, but if people are gonna lose, so it would be, I'll make a comment on this motion. It would be probably good for Greg to have his sign up, and everybody knows that when they sign up, there is a responsibility, but perhaps to do an official sign up with a deposit later on. It's very early now, and that's my.
So I think that one of my concerns with making a motion now is that we don't necessarily have a procedure hammered out by the superintendent, and the particulars are still a little unclear on how we want to best proceed. So I know that so Greg, if they were to sign up now and they put $150 down, and in February you decide to cancel because there's just not enough interest, do they still lose the $150?
They would lose the 150. And that's with the full refund program. If we don't do the full refund program, I think it was 169. And that's less than people lost when we were dealing with other trips. But I'm hopefully we don't lose anybody.
Right.
Hopefully we get enough people signed up and we can go.
I would not be willing, personally, I'm not willing to vote on this motion tonight.
I'll
But
withdraw the motion.
I think that might be best, Steve, but you don't have to.
I just wanted to give Greg the ability to recruit for the trip.
Yeah, I know. I do too. I personally am not willing to vote yes tonight. I do want to confer with Kirk a little bit more and Pat, just to make sure that we have, because we tripped on this the last time this happened pre-COVID, and I don't want to trip on it and make problems for Greg.
I remember well.
Yeah. So we need to hammer this out a little bit more, and maybe we'll bring it back to the committee in 2 weeks and hopefully give you approval. Greg, do you mind me putting a little asterisk on that? Would you guys be willing, or have you considered at all giving priority to the senior class, next year's senior class?
We haven't set up a structure to do that. I mean, I could talk to World Strides about, I assume with right now, you see on you saw on that last slide that May 31st is our deadline to get $1,000 towards scholarship money. So I was thinking May 31st would be our date. I could talk to them about asking if they have a way to set it up. I know in the past experience, it was basically, if you're at the meeting, you get the code, you get to sign up. And the last time we did it, we had one trip that was full by the next morning and another trip the very next day. Those were international trips. I don't know if the interest for this will be as high. I certainly hope we have high interest. But I mean, we had 100 kids that year signing up for various trips. And like I told you a year ago that we had, I think, 3 kids that signed up for the one domestic trip. But it's a very different trip, and it's hard to know why they didn't sign up for that one or if they will for this one.
Yeah, I think that there just might be some pent up demand for this sort of thing. And the senior class hasn't had an opportunity yet. I think they're freshmen. Yeah. So their freshman year, maybe, but I would just recommend that you perhaps do the signups globally, but if it's over enrolled, that you give preference to the kids who only have 1 year of opportunity left.
I understand that.
And you guys can do whatever you please, but I would just think that would be a good idea. And I hope it doesn't sound self-serving, because my kid is going to be a senior. I'm really just doing it for Amy's kid. No. All right, let's wrap this up. Thanks, Greg, for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Very excited for the opportunity.
Thank you for the time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Denson. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and thanks, Kate. I think that you're all done with the meeting, yeah? All right, great. Have a good night. All right, guys, moving on. Our student representatives cannot be with us tonight, so that is not going to be on the agenda. We have the SRO MOU vote. So the School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding. My understanding is that Kirk is going to send this over to Mike McCarro to have him look at a little bit of this boilerplate language in the MOU. So we're going to push that to another agenda. Without objection, I would like to do that. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's no objection on my part to tabling that matter, but and I will come forth and confess my sins before the committee this evening that invariably the MOU's tabling this evening is most likely at my impetus. So I apologize to the committee if there's members of this body that are, feel this is imperative that we approve this evening. The one other thing I did want to, unfortunately Kirk had left, and there's one other wrinkle to the MOU that I was kind of looking at this evening. Both the model MOU that's posted on the Department of Public Safety's website, the Executive Office of Public Safety's website, and the draft that we received as well, talks about operating procedures that are supposed to accompany the document. So my question is, and I'm just posing this because I know Kirk's not here, do we have operating procedures already in place? Because the document we received doesn't have those. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if you go back and look at the Well, I just a minute. There's just the document we have does say that it's supposed to be accompanied by operating procedures, but then it talks about in section 10 that those would be drafted and created between the superintendent and the chief of police. So I guess my request to Kirk would be an abstention that, you know, when he's talking to Attorney Maccaro, could he get a clarification on, you know, where these operating procedures are? Do they already in place in the district, or are those going to be forthcoming as part of the document?
Yeah, it's a great point. So yeah, Joe expressed a couple of really legitimate concerns with the model MOU. So Kirk is going to bring that over to Maccaro's office and ask those questions. But Joe, I will add that you sent me an additional email. I will forward that to Kirk because those were all great points as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I again, if I may I speak, Madam Chair? I just want to.
Of course.
Yeah. I know it might be self-serving on me to say this, but I would encourage everybody on this committee, if they have not really looked at that MOU model agreement that's put forth, to really carefully scrutinize it. It is a very complex document. It entails provisions which provide that the SRO will be designated as a special district employee to have access to student records. And it's a really complex document. And I would encourage everyone to really take a hard look at this document. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thanks, Joe. Great advice. Okay, so we're going to move on to the school choice vote now. Mike, can I lean on you to give me a motion for that?
Lean on me when you're not strong. I move to withdraw from the school choice program for the 2022-2023 school year due to the current enrollment and to be compliant with district class size policies, DESE to be notified of this vote.
I'm going to second that. Let's open it for discussion if there is any. Yeah, Mike.
Just to be clear, a yes vote means a vote to withdraw. There's a couple double negatives in there potentially, so I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, we're voting yes to pull out of the school choice program.
Right.
Any discussion?
Is this can we clarify that that's the recommendation of the superintendent for this?
So that is currently the recommendation of the superintendent. He has expressed an interest in possibly changing that recommendation next year after a comprehensive study of the impact of school choice and the viability of it in our schools next year.
Right.
I think it would be really haphazard for us to opt in at this stage right now, considering we don't know what the impact would be.
Okay, thank you.
It's a cost issue for me. Personally, I'll just give my personal opinion that the state gives $5,000 for every child in for school choice. And it's, in my opinion, it was set in 1993 and inflation is clear. That number needs to go up and before I would vote for it. That's just my opinion. Any other opinions, or you want to vote?
Well,
all right. So again, a yes vote means we are opting out of school choice for next year and will not allow it. So Rich?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
And Sean?
Abstain.
Very good. All right, everybody. So we're on to the next item here, and that is the consent agenda. Or just kidding, just kidding. Is that right? Yeah, consent agenda. All right, Mike, one more time for the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda of May 4th, 2022, containing the meeting minutes of April 6th, 2022, and the warrants of May 6th, 2022.
I'll second that. Do we have any discussion? All right, let's vote. Rich?
Yes, make sure you're leaning into your microphone, please.
Yes, sir. I vote yes. Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes. Yeah.
Brett?
Yes.
And Sean?
Yes.
Very good. All right, everybody, we're going to move over to our subcommittee reports, and we're going to start with budget and warrant. Steve?
No report.
Great. Communication?
We met on April 7th. We reviewed our progress towards goals and also are going to be asking Superintendent Downing to join our next meeting so that we can get a report on how our recommendations from our communication survey were incorporated into strategic planning forums. Sorry for the background noise.
It's okay. It's bedtime. All right. Thanks, Amy. To the school building committee, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In regards to the school building committee, I will start at the end and move back towards the beginning. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 17th. On the 25th of April, we had our second public forum. It was, I think it was just a question of timing. It was the Monday after our April vacation. We did not have a significantly large crowd at the forum. We had about, I think we topped out about 13 people. But again, these are all been recorded by Bolton Access TV. So you can go on YouTube, you can go on Bolton Access, and you can watch the second forum. This was on the visioning process, and I felt it unfortunate because it was probably the most interesting aspect of this process so far, just hearing the report out on the visioning. In regards to our last meeting, the subcommittee last met on April 12th. At that meeting, a vote was taken to essentially designate the current current locus of the high school as the location for either a new high school or a renovation project. I bring that to the committee's attention because while the committee did vote that, the architect was very keen to point out that they were not at that point ready to make that recommendation to the district. That being said, from a procedural standpoint, what the committee voted is not something that is set in stone. So if there should be any change in that regard, we'll certainly report that back to the district committee. But for right now, the building committee has voted to basically designate the current Bolton location for the high school as the site is for the new high school and or renovation project. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Great, thank you. And I know that we're over time, everybody. We're just going to hurry through these, not hurry, but we're going to do these subcommittee reports. Mary, it wouldn't be your last meeting if we didn't go long. So personnel report, you guys know that evaluation is on the mind of the personnel subcommittee. That is basically our report. We're just looking for you guys to do that survey for us. So I'll send an email reminder on that as well. Over to policy.
Policy met on April 11th. We're still working on policy D, and Mr. Gleason has very graciously offered to help us with that. Thank you. And we will have another meeting this coming week. So we will have a couple of things to present to the committee probably on June 1st.
Thank you. And audit advisory, anything new, Rich?
Nothing to report.
Great, thank you. And over to Dear Jay, Sharon.
Dear Jay met on April 27th. They broke into two groups and worked in two different areas. One was Indigenous peoples, or raising awareness of the Indigenous peoples in our area, and specifically working on land acknowledgements. And the other group was working on coming up with some specific professional development trainings for the school committee, potentially around identity and perspective, and also working on some types of systemic things that the subcommittees can do to promote equity in the work of the subcommittees.
Great work. Thanks, Sharon. The RAAAC to Mary.
So the RAAC met on April 26th in its final meeting. We had one more than a quorum. We had 6 of us. Quorum is 5, so that was great because we had told everyone that the last meeting was going to be the final meeting. At this point, there are a couple of small questions, and Leah will take care of, and she's already contacted Desi and Christine Lynch and Desi to have those, but we have officially given over the draft from the RAAC to Leah as chairperson of the school committee. So once she has an answer on those, it's described in her very capable hands, and that it's on its way to all of you. And again, I want to thank all the members of the RAAC, and it gives me a great deal of confidence that Leah and Sharon, and Steve knows something about this too, because he served too, that they'll be able to help everybody else. But the work that's been done means that we're passing on to you a really well thought out and well explored draft for you to decide on. And so this is me signing out now. This is my final report. I can't believe it. So farewell, my friends.
Thank you, Mary. Yay. Our last one is going to go over to CPAC. Brett.
I believe CPAC is having a business meeting on May 10th and will hold elections. So more to come on that.
Great. Thanks, Brett. And everybody's welcome to join that CPAC meeting.
They would love it.
Okie doke. Thank you. All right, everybody. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. They're really, the major items are already on the planning calendar. If you want to add anything, please let me know. The most pressing issue, everyone, is the superintendent's evaluation. Please get me your individual evaluation form by May 11th, and then I'll work on pulling them all together. Before we adjourn, I just want to say one more fare thee well to Dr. McCarthy. Thank you, Mary. You are the best. And I see Alita's hand. Alita.
Just want to show you guys one thing for a minute. Wait a second.
Oh, the suspense.
I will be delivering this to Dr. McCarthy tomorrow on behalf of the school committee and the district. It's a crystal bowl. It has her name engraved on the back.
Oh, that's awesome.
So Mary, if you contact me in the morning and let me know a good time for delivery.
Beautiful. Fill it with lots of candy, Mary.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot. Thank you. So, okay, big sigh.
Would you like to make a motion to adjourn, Mary?
Oh, I would, yes. So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
And I second that. Rich.
Bye, Mary. Thank you. Yes.
Myself, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Sean?
Thank you, Mary. Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, and don't forget to check your mailbox.
Mary?
Yes.
I think I got everybody. Bye, everyone. Bye, Mary.
Call me tomorrow, Mary, and let me